Hi, I'm Olivia. Today I will be talking about the job costing system and standards of ethical conduct for management accountants. In a job costing system, a company assigns costs to each job or to each batch of goods. It accumulates the cost of materials, labor, and an overhead for a specific job. It is great for tracing specific costs to individual jobs and examining them to see where costs can be reduced in future jobs. In the job cost system, for direct materials, it must track the cost of all the materials used during the job, which goes under the raw materials inventories account. It also adds the cost of components and then assigns these costs to a product or project once the components are used. As for direct labor, they track the cost of labor used on the job. Direct labor is typically assigned to a job with a time card or time sheet. There's three types of costs: gross earnings of factory workers, employer payroll taxes on these earnings, and fringe benefits such as sick pay, pensions, or vacation pay. It is important to know that companies debit labor costs to factory labor as they incur these costs. As for overhead costs, in job costing, they assign overhead costs in cost pools, which is a grouping of individual costs, typically by department or service center. There are many types of overhead costs. If the costs relate to manufacturing overhead, then they are accumulated in manufacturing overhead to ensure the treatment as product costs. Next, I will be talking about the standards of ethical conduct. There are four main principles of ethics. First is honesty, which is being as truthful as possible. Second is fairness, which is being free from bias or injustice. Third is objectivity, which is being realistic and straight to the point. And fourth is being responsible, which is being accountable for something and having management. There are four main standards of ethics. The first is competence, the second is confidentiality, the third is integrity, and the fourth is credibility. First, for competence, each member has the responsibility to have a professional attitude, knowledge, and to act and perform professional. They are also to be able to provide information and recommendations that are accurate, clear, concise, and on time. They also need to be able to recognize and understand professional limitations or restrictions that would prevent a successful performance from happening. As for confidentiality, a person is responsible to keep information confidential unless there is a disclosure. They are to be sure everyone understands the use of confidential information and to not take advantage from the confidential information you know. The third is integrity, which is communicating regularly with coworkers to avoid problems, and being responsible of your actions in an ethical manner and know what activities you can and cannot take part of. Last but not least is credibility. You are to communicate information fairly and objectively, know what information you can and cannot use, make known delays or deficiencies in information, timeliness, processing, or internal controls with policy or applicable law. Here's an example of a resolution of ethical conflict. If I have a conflict with one of my coworkers and we can't resolve it ourselves, I would discuss the issue with my supervisor if he or she is not involved. If my supervisor is involved, then I would take it to the next level, which could be management level or higher. I will not involve people outside the company unless there is a clear violation of the law. I will then clarify relevant ethical issues by initiating a confidential discussion with the Institute of Management Ethics counselor to understand a better course of action. Then I would consult my attorney as to legal obligations and rights concerning the ethical conflict, but hopefully it never gets that far. Back to job costing, here is an example of a job order cost system. This company could be a printing company that makes wedding invitations, menus, and pamphlets. For job 429, let's say it's wedding invitations, the materials used were $3,020, the labor was $2,410, and for job 430, let's say it's menus, the materials were $3,750, and the labor was $3,580. And for job 431, let's say it was pamphlets. The materials were $4,980 worth, and the labor involved was $8,030. And here is the total of materials for this printing company used, which is $12,674, and the total labor accounted for $15,350. I hope this gives you a better understanding of job cost processes. And remember, go Aztecs!